Hey guys, tonight we ease into a tale so gently dull, so mildly unremarkable, that you might just snooze before the first myth even unfolds. You're standing at the foot of Mount Olympus, except not the dramatic, lightning-blasted version from movies. Nope, this Olympus is strangely quiet. There's no thunder, no giant eagles, not even a dramatic harp flourish. It's sort of like walking into a spa where the gods have all decided to call in sick. You can smell faint lavender in the air. Someone's snoring and it might be Zeus. You probably won't survive this out of sheer boredom. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is over there. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge up a gentle path lined with clouds that resemble marshmallow furniture, and the sound of your footsteps barely stirs the air. Olympus, once the sparkling seat of divine mischief, is honestly kind of a retirement home now. Hera's knitting. Ares is snoozing on a bench wearing socks with sandals. You pass Hermes, who's trading gossip with a turtle, but even he seems too tired to exaggerate. The gods aren't exactly in top form. Apollo, normally radiant and golden, is giving a half-hearted harp recital to an audience of one very disinterested pigeon. Historically, you recall, Apollo was the god of music, sun, and healing. Sure, but tonight, his concert has all the vibe of elevator music in a waiting room. Athena, goddess of wisdom, is flipping slowly through a very thick book titled Advanced Spear Theory. But from the droop in her eyelids, you suspect she's rereading the same page for the third time. It's comforting in a way. Even deities get the blahs. You come across Dionysus next, lounging under a tree surrounded by half-full goblets. Once the god of wine and revelry, he now seems to be mid-hangover and deeply regretting last millennia's choices. Party hard, nap harder, he mumbles face down in a grape bush. Now, you'd think divine beings might jazz up their daily routines. Lightning bolts, earthquakes, drama. But it turns out immortality doesn't prevent ennui. One fringe theory even claims the gods invented boredom, gifted it to humans as a sort of cosmic inside joke. Historians still argue whether this was punishment or just divine forgetfulness. You pass by Hephaestus's workshop, expecting clanging metal and flying sparks. Instead, you find him staring into a cold forge, occasionally poking at a lump of bronze with a stick. A scroll on his desk reads, "How to rekindle your creative flame." He sighs and flips to the next page. Even Aphrodite, usually the sparkle in Olympus's eye, is applying lip balm absent-mindedly, muttering about the lack of romance around here. She eyes a sleeping Zeus and mutters, "He hasn't transformed into anything weird in weeks." You wander through a hallway lined with statues, each one commemorating past feats. But tonight, they all seem to blend together into a grayish parade of yawn-worthy greatness. A golden plaque catches your eye. Perseus defeats Medusa. Cool, right? Except this version has Perseus politely asking if she minds, turning herself into stone, and she shrugs and obliges. No swords, no chase, just mutual agreement. Zeus finally is holding court, or trying to. He's wearing a bathrobe and sipping chamomile tea from a mug labeled, "King of Gods, his mighty throne has lumbar support." He tries to deliver a booming decree, but it comes out more like a soft cough. Mortals shall, I forgot what I was saying. As you continue your stroll, you hear a low hum and realize it's just Poseidon swaying in a rocking chair, telling a seahorse the same story he's told for centuries. And then I made a wave, a really big one. The seahorse yawns. Despite their infinite powers, the gods seem trapped in their own repetitive loop. And maybe that's the point. Immortality strips the urgency from everything. What's the rush to smite a mortal when you've got all of eternity to do it? Why start a war when you can take a nap and forget you were mad? You step into Artemis's moonlit garden, where she's trying to teach deer how to spell their names with flower petals. It's going terribly, but she doesn't seem to mind. One deer walks directly into a tree. Artemis pats it on the head and smiles. Close enough. One curious detail, barely mentioned in the usual texts, is that Hermes once proposed a celestial game night to cure the monotony. Monopoly, charades, you name it. The event lasted one cosmic evening, during which Ares flipped the board, Athena quoted rule books, and Hades refused to participate unless they renamed it Sulopoli. It was never attempted again. By now, your eyes feel heavier. Olympus hums gently in the background, more library than battlefield. The myths you've heard 1,000 times start to blur at the edges. Heracles is lifting weights in the corner. But instead of lions and hydras, he's doing slow reps with throw pillows. Gotta stay in shape, he mumbles, in case they reboot the myth. Even the muses have packed up early. They're organizing their index cards by alphabet and quietly debating whether to compose an epic poem. About sorting laundry. You overhear, do you rhyme detergent with urgent or just don't? Some say this peaceful era of Olympus came after a particularly embarrassing incident involving Zeus, a swan, and a very public misinterpretation of consent laws. Historians still argue whether this marked the decline of divine meddling, or just a necessary image rebrand. As you settle onto a soft patch of moss beneath a fig tree, you glance back at the lazy gods lounging in the clouds. The wind stirs gently, carrying the faint smell of old scrolls and overripe nectarines. And while nothing dramatic happens, the boredom itself becomes oddly comforting. You start to wonder, maybe the real myth was thinking excitement was the point. Maybe sometimes even the gods just need a nap. You're not sure when exactly you left Olympus, but now you find yourself wandering across a vast, gray battlefield that looks like someone paused time, right before anything interesting happened. Welcome to the Titanomachy, where the gods versus titans showdown unfolds with the thrilling energy of a 6-hour waiting line at the DMV. A stone rolls lazily down a nearby hill. That's about the most exciting movement so far. You squint across the terrain, expecting to see colossal battles, flaming swords, Zeus hurling thunderbolts like dodgeballs. But instead, you get Cronus, the big boss. Titan staring into the sky and mumbling something about how things were better before these flashy upstarts showed up. You inch past a group of titans hunched over a broken chariot wheel, debating whether to fix it or just philosophize about it. This supposedly is the great war that shaped the cosmos. In myth, the Titanomachy raged for 10 years, a cosmic battle that would determine the fate of the universe. In reality, you watch as one titan yawns so hard his jaw dislocates. Someone is definitely losing the will to fight, but it's unclear which side it is. You drift past Oceanus, who's technically in charge of all the Earth's rivers, but he seems preoccupied arranging rocks by size. It's hydrologically symbolic, he explains, not making eye contact. Meanwhile, Iapetus is giving a speech about the importance of structure in divine conflict, and no one is listening. Even Gaia, mother of Earth herself, is sipping tea and quietly scrolling through what looks suspiciously like a celestial Pinterest board. Despite its legendary status, the Titanomachy is remarkably short on action. Historians still argue whether this 10-year war was an actual battle or more of a passive-aggressive standoff involving a lot of awkward family dinners and strategic sulking. Zeus is technically the star here, but instead of storming onto the scene with a dramatic entrance, he's standing on a rock flipping a coin.
Heads I call lightning.
Tails I delegate. You swear he whispers, please be tails, before the coin lands in the grass and disappears. Hades and Poseidon, his brothers, aren't exactly oozing enthusiasm either. Poseidon's building a tiny model trident out of driftwood. Hades is halfway through a crossword puzzle titled Shades and Shadows. An important mainstream fact: this was the moment the Olympians claimed their throne from the old gods. But it sure doesn't feel that way. At one point, you see Rhea, Cronus' wife, staring into space and softly repeating, "Why did I marry someone who swallowed our children?" It's a fair question. Therapy might have prevented this whole war. You approach the legendary battlefield of Mount Othrys, expecting fire and fury. Instead, there's a welcome table. A titaness hands you a small basket with a leaflet titled, Conflict Mediation, Why Screaming Might Not Be the Answer, and a coupon for one free ambrosia loaf. You sit under a boulder and listen as the two sides exchange threats so vague and non-committal. They sound like a passive Facebook post. You'll regret this. Will I, though? Perhaps. Unclear. Even the mythic weapons seem disinterested. Zeus's lightning bolt flickers like a dying phone flashlight. Cronus' scythe is missing a blade. When one titan finally lumbers forward with a war cry, He trips over a turtle and politely apologizes before collapsing into a nap. You hear murmurs of the Hecatoncheires, those 100-armed giants, supposedly summoned by Zeus to turn the tide. But instead of wreaking havoc, they're using all their hands to knit scarves. One of them offers you a half-finished one in the shape of a thunderbolt. Not bad for a Tuesday, he says proudly. There's a fringe tidbit that pops into your head. Some old poets claimed the Titanomachy was really just a metaphor for seasonal cycles or generational shifts, not an actual war. You believe it. This whole scene feels more like Thanksgiving dinner with estranged relatives than a battle for supremacy. Someone starts chanting, not a battle hymn, but more of a what do we want, when do we want it situation with no clear demands. You glance at Mnemosyne, titaness of memory, who's writing down the events of the war with such detachment that the scroll reads, Day 7482, nothing of note. As the sun sets behind thick clouds that don't even bother to look dramatic, you realize this isn't just boring, it's existentially boring. An entire pantheon stuck in a war no one truly wants to win. Maybe the Titans are tired. Maybe the Olympians are just improvising. Maybe they all just need a group nap and some chamomile. You shuffle past Hyperion, who's sun-powered but apparently forgot to recharge. He glows faintly, like a nightlight running out of batteries. He's drawing constellation doodles in the dirt. It's supposed to be a bear, he says, showing you a swirl. You nod encouragingly. Eventually, Zeus mumbles something about victory and tosses, a lightning bolt that lands harmlessly in a puddle. Everyone kind of shrugs. Cronus drops his scythe and walks off muttering about starting a garden. Maybe pomegranates, he says to no one. Victory, it seems, is declared not with a bang, but with a collective sigh of relief. The Titans trudge back into shadowy caves, not so much defeated as gently dismissed. The Olympians inherit the world with all the enthusiasm of a teenager inheriting a weekend job at their dad's hardware store. You blink slowly as the battlefield dims into twilight. Somewhere in the distance, a harp plays one long, sustained note and then forgets what chord comes next. And just like that, the Great War is over. You wander onward, the ground soft beneath your feet, like someone replaced all the ancient battlefields with slightly damp memory foam. The war is over, the Titans are gone, and now the gods are free to do whatever they want, which, oddly, turns out to be not all that different from what they were doing. Before a slow-motion parade of divine drama that barely stirs the air, you drift past Olympus again, where now the gossip and romantic entanglements have taken center stage. You expect thunderous passion and vengeful curses. What you get is basically a very slow soap opera with terrible lighting. Zeus, for instance, is still doing his shape-shifting routine to sneak around on Hera, but his efforts feel tired. You spot him turning into a very unconvincing goose, waddling toward a mortal maiden who looks more confused than seduced. Are you lost? She asks. The goose honks once, awkwardly, and vanishes into a cloud of glitter. You pause beside Hera, who's sitting on a cloud with a clipboard. She's not plotting revenge, she's updating a spreadsheet. Zeus Affairs Q3. You catch a glimpse. It's color-coded. The red ones are ongoing. You keep walking, lulled by the monotonous hum of immortality. You overhear Apollo and Artemis arguing over archery styles. Again. Apollo's bowstring snapped 2 hours ago, but no one noticed because he's been explaining the theory of poetic form to a tree. The tree has developed bark acne from stress. You turn a corner and walk directly into Narcissus's reflection pool. He's still there, of course, gazing lovingly at himself, but now he occasionally asks his reflection for skincare advice. Should I exfoliate twice a week, or, wow, your cheekbones are amazing. Elsewhere, the love stories are less romantic and more bureaucratic. Paris, Prince of Troy, is filling out a Form 17B, Divine Beauty Judgment Reconsideration. Aphrodite is nearby, helping him with the appeal. Technically, I did bribe you with Helen, she admits. But who doesn't love a good incentive package? You pass by Orpheus, who's trying to write another love ballad for Eurydice. The thing is, he keeps rhyming Eurydice with urgency, currency, and emergency, and none of it really makes sense. You want to tell him to just go with you and move on, but he looks so earnest. One mainstream fact stands out as you drift through this sleepy divine sitcom. In myth, the gods constantly interfered with mortal lives. Wars, loves, quests, you name it. But in this version, they mostly fill out forms and argue over who left the ambrosia out. At one point, you watch Hermes write a very stern post-it note. Please stop borrowing my winged sandals, H. You find Prometheus next, the firebringer himself, eternally punished for giving humans fire. You'd expect a tortured figure chained to a rock, eagle pecking at his liver. Instead, he's got a tiny tent and a slow-drip coffee maker. The eagle shows up around 3 p.m. daily, pecks a little, then they both break for Sudoku. Prometheus gives you a tired wave. Immortality, he says, is just time without punctuation. Somewhere nearby, Sisyphus is halfway up the hill again. But now he's using a pulley system in podcasting while he pushes. Welcome back to Rolling Forward, he says into a conch shell. Today's theme, letting go of expectations. The boulder slips back down, he sighs. Classic. Historians still argue whether this endless cycle of divine soap opera was meant to reflect human frailty, or just entertain ancient audiences with celestial absurdity. Either way, you're stuck in a loop of low-stakes conflict. Like watching season 23 of a show you can't stop. Now, because you've already seen so much, Hercules strolls by covered in lion fur, holding a task-completed checklist. Except now the tasks include defrost Cerberus, file Hydra report, and refill nectar cooler. He gives you a thumbs up and mutters, "This is fine," before wandering off to wrestle a stubborn cork from a bottle. A lesser-known fringe tidbit drifts through your mind. Some ancient accounts claim that after death, the gods didn't punish mortals. They just assigned them eternally annoying errands, like alphabetizing the stars or organizing satyr parties by RSVP status. You believe it. You blink slowly, your head swimming with slow-moving heroes and overstretched metaphors. Odysseus, now long retired, is in a lakeside chair reading Iliad for dummies and occasionally shouting "plot hole" at the sky. Achilles is sulking in the corner, not over Patroclus, but because someone told him the heel joke again. "Yes, I get it," he grumbles. "I should have worn boots." You finally make it to a temple where the muses are hosting a focus group. What makes a compelling epic? They ask a group of sheep. One sheep bows thoughtfully. Clio, muse of history, nods solemnly. Exactly. You stumble past Daedalus's workshop. He's building a new labyrinth. This one designed to be so confusing you forget why you entered. It's working. You walk in, forget what you were looking for, and end up sitting in a chair shaped like a question mark. Daedalus hands you tea and says, "That's the real myth, trying to make sense of any of this." By now, everything starts to feel like one long nap you accidentally woke up in the middle of. Gods, demigods, cursed lovers, all floating in an endless loop of divine routine. The excitement of heroism fades beneath the weight of routine, and you realize even the greatest myths can settle into something that feels oddly like a Tuesday afternoon. As you recline on a crumbling stone bench, you close your eyes, letting the soft breeze of Olympus hum around you. Somewhere in the distance, a god sneezes and no one even reacts. Maybe it's not about action. Maybe it's just about letting the myths slow down until they melt into quiet moments. Until you forget whether you're the hero, the chorus, or just the narrator taking a nap between plot points. You blink slowly, rising from your stone bench like a weary actor between acts. Olympus fades behind you, and a new landscape takes shape. Not ancient or mythic this time, but cobbled, crooked, and unmistakably medieval. You step into Strasbourg, 1518, where the air is damp with the smell of hearth smoke and boiled cabbage. There's a hush about the town square that doesn't match the low buzz of curiosity gathering at the edges. Something's off. At first, you think it's just one woman dancing. She moves with a weird, jerky rhythm, like she's trying to beat the rain with her feet. A small crowd has gathered, murmuring quietly. "She's been going since dawn," someone whispers. You tilt your head. It's now evening. She hasn't stopped once. Not to rest, not to drink, not even to faint. You settle onto a barrel for a better view, half expecting this to be a rehearsal for a festival or a very committed flash mob. But it's not performance, it's compulsion. By day 3, she's still going, and she's no longer alone. Dozens have joined her, men, women, even children, all of them dancing without music, without rest, without explanation. Their faces twitch between joy, terror, And that blank exhaustion, you only see on treadmill users who've lost the will to press stop. One mainstream historical fact floats to the surface of your sleepy mind. In July of 1518, historical records confirm that a real dancing plague overtook Strasbourg. Dozens, then hundreds danced uncontrollably for days, and yes, some even to their deaths. Historians logged this strange phenomenon in city records with the same bewildered tone you're hearing now in murmured street gossip. You walk alongside the dancers, trying not to get trampled. A man near you collapses, face slack and limbs twitching. A moment later, he twitches back to his feet and keeps going, like a marionette held up by some invisible string. He mouths something you can't hear over the scuffing of feet. You follow a line of weary observers toward the town council chamber. Inside, the city leaders are locked in a heated debate. Clearly, it's overheating of the blood, one insists, wiping his forehead and looking far too warm himself. Another suggests music therapy, actual music to match the madness. They want to dance? Give them drums. Maybe it'll stop. A third councilman proposes a pilgrimage to a saint's shrine. A fourth is trying to find a way to monetize it. You back out slowly. The room smells like sweat, incense, and confused authority. There's a fringe theory you overheard earlier from a cart vendor. Some believe it's ergot poisoning, the same fungus that grows on damp, rye, and can cause hallucinations, convulsions, and weird dreams. But that doesn't explain the timing, or why entire families seem to be caught in the same rhythm. You pass a boy skipping in circles, his eyes glassy, mumbling the same four-note melody over and over. It's hypnotic. You pass a troupe of local musicians hired by the city. They're half-heartedly playing flutes and viols, trying to match the dancer's rhythm. One looks up at you and shrugs. They don't even hear us, he mutters. You think he might be crying. Down a side alley, you find a priest with wild eyes and a black robe wrinkled from too many sleepless nights. This is divine punishment, he hisses. For pride, for gluttony, for something. He glances nervously toward a dancing shoemaker, spinning in a circle while holding a basket of eels. Historians still argue whether this was a mass psychogenic illness, a contagious mental state caused by stress, famine, and collective trauma. You consider this as you watch two dancing women hold hands, spinning faster and faster until they crash into a fruit stand. You try to talk to one of them. Her lips are cracked, her hair stuck to her temples. I don't want to, she whispers. My legs do. It's been over a week. There's sweat darkening every stone, bodies crumpling and rising again like something out of a bizarre puppet show. The dancers have been herded into a guild hall now, but they're spilling out into the streets again. You see a man fall and not rise. No one reacts. There's no screaming, just momentum. A traveling physician arrives, stepping daintily over a collapsed baker. They need rhythm, he insists, setting up a harpsichord. Proper choreography. We must let it burn itself out. You want to ask him where he studied, but he's already adjusting his powdered wig and playing something vaguely upbeat in D minor. You pass a poet trying to write about what he sees. He gives up halfway through a stanza. No metaphor can touch this, he mumbles, tearing the page. You pat him on the back and hand him a pear. Night falls again. The moonlight catches the faces of dancers locked in endless motion. The city square has become a silent rave without speakers, an exhaustion ritual no one remembers agreeing to. And somewhere, beneath all the broken cobblestones, you feel the town sigh. A new rumor bubbles up from the crowd. Perhaps it's the curse of St. Vitus, a martyr whose restless spirit drives people to uncontrollable movement. You try to find the chapel dedicated to him, but it's closed for repairs. A nun standing nearby just shrugs. Saints work in mysterious renovations, she says, walking off to ring a bell no one hears. You sit down again, next to a cat who's watching everything with the calm judgment of one who knows this town has completely lost it. Seen worse, the cat might say, if it cared enough. The air cools. The dancing slows. A few collapse and don't get up again. Not from death, necessarily, but maybe from the realization that they can. One woman finally lies still, whispering, "My feet forgot how to stop." Her husband sits beside her, gently removing her shoes. "I never liked those anyway," he says softly. You lean back against a barrel and let the strange rhythm fade from your bones. and for a moment all of Strasbourg is still. You rise again slowly now, as if your limbs remember. The exhaustion soaked into Strasbourg's cobbles. The dancers are quiet. The bells chime softly through a town no longer spinning. You shuffle onward, drawn forward by the breeze of time, by memory, by boredom draped like a heavy blanket over the centuries. And just when you think you might be heading somewhere exciting, you arrive. In a library. Not just any library. A medieval scriptorium. Stone walls lined with scrolls, codices, and a group of very sleepy monks writing history so slowly, you can practically hear each letter being formed. One of them yawns into an inkwell. You watch as he spends 30 minutes deciding whether to capitalize the word king. This, it turns out, is boring history. Capital B, capital A. You plop onto a wooden bench and squint at the parchment. A young monk is copying the same phrase for the 7th time. The barley yield in 1342 was not significantly different from the yield in 1341. Riveting stuff? You shuffle through pages of historical records and find more. Gems, a detailed inventory of spoons in a Benedictine abbey, a court case about stolen turnips that lasted 11 weeks, a trade dispute involving 3 barrels of mildly sour wine. You smile? This is what real history looks like when it's not mythologized, just sleepy. Dusty facts inked by candlelight. A mainstream historical fact does manage to poke its head up. During the medieval period, monks were among the few literate people, and they preserved much of what we know by copying documents day after day. Without them, even the spicy bits of history, wars, plagues, dancing people, might have been lost, but most of what they recorded was, well, not spicy. You listen as one monk drones aloud to another. On the 12th of May, Brother Odo dropped the butter crock and was chastised accordingly. You nod solemnly. Brother Odo, we hardly knew ye. The boredom here is so intense it becomes almost hypnotic. You feel your pulse slow to match the pace of a quill-scratching paper. Your eyelids flutter, and then something slightly interesting. A rat appears on the table. It scampers across a manuscript and nibbles the corner. The monk sighs, casually flicks it away, and keeps writing. That's Brother Edmund's rat, he mumbles. He names them all after apostles. You pick up a dusty book titled Unremarkable. Events of the 1300s and read aloud. A man in York claimed to have invented a wheelbarrow that only went left. It did not catch on. You whisper the last part with reverence. A quirky tidbit floats past you like a drowsy firefly. Some medieval manuscripts have doodles in the margins. Tiny rabbits with swords. Monks wrestling snails. Even rude caricatures of bishops with suspiciously large noses. You find one and laugh quietly. It's a cow wearing a bishop's hat. Below it, someone scribbled Monsignor. You pass a man cataloging rain. Drizzled for 2 hours, he writes. Then moderately dripped. Then resumed light drizzle. You ask if anything else happened. He thinks. One chicken got wet. You're lulled further by the monotony. Every now and then, a bell rings to mark prayer time, but no one hurries. They just glide slowly like underwater fish in brown robes. You're starting to feel like you've been here for a week. In reality, it's been maybe 20 minutes and a single line of text copied by hand. Historians still argue whether these records represent an accurate snapshot of the medieval world, or a very selective, filtered version through the eyes of the church. You glance at a page that reads, "All was well this season, praise be." You flip to the next year. "This season likewise." One monk sneezes dramatically. "Mark that down," another murmurs. "Future generations must know." You wander into a smaller room filled with forgotten inventions. There's a medieval alarm clock that involves a candle burning through string, a chicken coop with a built-in bell system, a fork with only one prong. The inventor claimed it reduced temptation by slowing eating. You hear 2 monks arguing quietly. "I still say we should have added dragons," one mutters. "Would have spiced up the barley stats." Eventually, your attention shifts to a final shelf. Labeled Unfinished Epics, you crack one open. It starts with a promising line. "Behold, the night of..." and then stops. The rest of the page is filled with drawings of turnips in chainmail. You gently close it, placing it back with the respect due to all half-baked dreams. The quiet here is so deep, so total. It becomes a kind of lullaby, a warm sigh from the past. And now you feel it. The slow gravitational pull of sleep wrapping around your thoughts. like parchment curling beside a hearth. The monks are still writing, the candles still flicker, and the history, well, it's still mostly about barley. You step backward, fading from the scriptorium, past the dancers of Strasbourg, past the bickering gods and brooding heroes, past even the yawning titans, and now you're here. Not in the past, not in the present, just in the hush, just in the slow, just in the quiet space between myth and memory, between dreams and wakefulness. And now everything softens. The ancient stories, once full of roaring beasts and booming gods, have grown distant, like echoes drifting across time. Even the dancers have slowed, their restless steps long faded into the cobblestones of memory. You're left with stillness now, the kind that hums beneath the chaos. The quiet pause after the last quill stroke, when the scribe leans back and simply breathes. You feel it in your chest, in the weightlessness of your limbs, as if your body's become parchment itself, gently curling at the edges. The names and dates dissolve, the dancing feet go still. The barley yields, the divine gossip. Even the frog-legged minotaurs fade into the background. All that's left is the soft rhythm of breath, the whisper of a turning page, and the steady lull of silence. Maybe the true myth isn't the one with monsters and miracles. Maybe it's this, the myth of your own slowing heart, the story of a mind gently letting go, word by word, thought by thought. The candle burns low, the air grows cooler, and all around you, time forgets how to count. So let your thoughts wander one last time, then let them go. Let the stories untangle and float like threads on the breeze. You've walked far, danced gently, and read more about barley than anyone probably should. Now it's time to close the book. Time to rest. And if your dreams feel just a little dusty, just a little ancient, that's okay. You've earned it, sweet dream.